Okay, today we're going to talk about developing reflexes, okay? And what we're going to use are some of the basic self-defense techniques that we do from the standing position. We're not going to go over very many, but some things that I've been working on with Mandy just recently, we'll talk about some of those techniques and how to develop the reflexes necessary. In Jiu-Jitsu, we have these techniques, and all the techniques are great, but unless they are readily available when you need them, out of reflex, they're not going to be very helpful. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with, and we've already covered some of these techniques, but we haven't done them very much. But I'm going to kind of test her a little bit, and I'm going to grab her in specific ways and just see what her reflex is. Okay, good. All right. So that was pretty reflexive. Okay, we've been doing these techniques a good bit. Now, if I grab you here, okay. Yes, good, good. A little bit more step back. More like 3 o'clock, okay? Boom, okay? Now, if I do, let's turn this direction, okay? Now, let's see here. Very good, yes. Okay, now, what was the difference between the two techniques?
You were pushing me.
I was pushing into you, okay? And so, this is the same, it's the same attack, but slightly different scenario, okay? But it's very important for her to develop and to practice these very slowly until we develop the reflex, okay? So what's the difference? The one is like this. I'm pulling her to me. It's a very, very common kind of attack. And so the first response is just to shrug our shoulders and kind of step our foot back and bend our head out, okay? So that's the initial response. Somebody grabs a hold of us. There's also a different one if we're pinned up against the wall. But in order for us to have the reflexes necessary, we have to practice them slowly. So when you start, when any technique, and this is not just for the self-defense, it's for any technique in Jiu-Jitsu, all right? If you are learning a technique, you owe it to yourself to start up very, very slowly, do it so slowly that it's impossible to make a mistake, okay? And if you're a white belt, blue belt, if you think you're at that speed, cut that speed in half. I promise you, it's not slow enough. So we start with zero resistance. So the first time I taught this technique to Mandy, I'm explaining to her the attack, okay? Obviously I'm not squeezing her neck, but I'm trying to be realistic in my position, all right? And then we go through the details without the stress of, real movement, real kind of intensity. So she learns the technique, all right? Okay, gotta shrug my shoulders, tuck my chin, step back, bend my knees, my head comes out, hands come up, okay? So when you're doing that, then you have the opportunity to stop and really pay attention to the details, okay? And get those down, because you want to develop them to a point where you have a high level of technical proficiency with the reflex, okay? That's important. If you're just doing movements very quickly and just kind of like sloppy, well, guess how you're going to perform them in real life? Very sloppily, okay? So then, once she gets the techniques down, I teach her this one. Go ahead, do it again. Yes, good. Okay, no stress, not a lot of resistance. Then I teach her this one, boom, right? And then she works on the details step by step, very, very slowly. Eventually starts, developing those neural pathways in the brain. Eventually that becomes a reflex, okay? So how do we practice, actually developing a proper reflex? Eventually I just grab, boom, what do you do? Yes, very good, okay? Now I could throw it, and little by little, each technique or each class that we come back to, I'll add something else. I'll grab here, okay? And then I'll grab a little bit differently, okay? Now what? Yes, very good, okay? And if I notice, as an instructor, I notice a mistake, we'll stop, we'll go back, and we'll slow it down again, okay? Because if you develop a reflex, a lot of people have different ideas as far as how long it takes to develop a reflex, okay? A lot of it comes down to the complexity of the movement, okay? But what's very important is that when you are practicing it, and if you do it sloppily and you develop your reflex in a very sloppy manner, correcting it is going to take 10 times as many repetitions as it did to develop the reflex in the first place. So I owe it to her as an instructor to stop it. If I notice if I start ramping up the resistance and I notice a mistake, then I'll stop and I say, okay, all right, bend your knees a little bit more, okay, now bend the elbow up, good, all right. Then we'll do that a lot of times, and then slowly, and then little by little, okay. So for example, if she's grabbing my arm wrong in a different manner, I'll stop. And we'll go back and we'll practice just that. I start to go forward, she takes a step back, boom, rewind. Okay, good. One step, boom, rewind. Good. Let's turn this direction. One step, boom. Okay. Once that starts to become comfortable again and we've corrected that one detail, then we can start going at the move a little bit more quickly. Okay, so don't go too fast. Repetition is key. So start up very slow, little by little, increase the speed once the details are there. Okay, and then I'll just come up and I'll just grab her anyway. You know, sometimes I'll be at the kitchen counter and boom, and she's got, very good. Okay, just to test the reflexes. Okay, so whatever techniques that you're doing, you want to take your time and start very, very slowly. Okay, especially if it's a very, very new movement for you. All right, or a new kind of concept. Right, but most of these self-defense techniques, they're very important for us to develop a reflex because we want to have a good response right away. And we say self-defense. I mean, all jiu-jitsu eventually is self-defense. But what these techniques for us, what they do is really kind of give us a solid answer to the initial aggression. Okay. After that, self-defense, fighting, it's all the same, right? All the other kind of practice and techniques that you've trained when you're in the fighting kind of mode, putting the gloves on, all that stuff's going to come into play, and you're going to be able to respond okay if you're training properly. Okay, but these techniques for us are very, very important because we want to have initial reflex response to the initial attack, the initial aggression. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys you learn these techniques, you know, with your partner. Go nice and slow, take your time, don't hurt each other, and yeah, that's it. That's all I got for today. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. We'll see you soon.